Welcome back, everybody, to Confluence World Podcast with Bryan Rector. And today, folks, is really crazy, actually, because for many of you who presumably saw the post that I put out a few days ago, or maybe last week now, time is really flying. Uh, we've done 16 and now 17 today episodes over the course of like the last, 6 or 7 months. And it's been a really, really cool process. We're putting out about one every 10 days, which considering schedules and considering uh, the different like scholastic pieces and travel and all the different elements, I find it really cool. And I really appreciate everybody who's come on the show, everybody who's entertaining the idea of coming on the show, and everybody listening, because it's been pretty cool to be sitting alongside everybody who I've had on. But today is another one that's a Zoom, as you can see, and one that I'm super excited for because I've been watching the story of this gal who's sitting beside me virtually for many a year. And it's gotten to the point where I'm appreciative to you because we're still in good touch and hearing about some things and understanding the journey and really appreciate how you've kept me in the fold as to what you're doing. But let me tell you guys this, she is a warrior on the volleyball court, and she has earned her stripes in really a fascinating first 2 years of collegiate volleyball down in Texas at Abilene Christian University. She started out with winning, or I say winning, with being elected to the all WAC freshman team, which that's something that's feather and cap, just unbelievable. And then followed that up with a season in year two, which had more kills. And, I've come to learn is just an unbelievable leader and somebody who you would want to build your program around. And fascinatingly enough, there's been a coaching change during her tenure, and the program has had to reevaluate and reset. So, very excited to hear her perspective on all matters relating to faith, relating to community, and relating to athletics, and something that she's been enduring as a trial, which we'll get into in just a minute. But without further ado, I want to invite in Ashli Edmiston, who originally homegrown Wilsonville, Oregon, and family moved to Texas a couple years back, and now your volleyball career has done the same. Moved to Texas, and I would love to know everything. But let's start with what have you been up to recently? How are you doing? How are things going in this off season or spring season time?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me here. Um, you have always just been so great and so supportive. So it's definitely great to stay in touch and to see how well you're doing with all of this. But yeah, volleyball has been kind of crazy. We just started 20-hour weeks again. So had a nice little break for a bit. And so now back kind of into the full swing of competing, training, practicing. And then on top of that, like you mentioned, now adding in rehab from an injury that I had right before the break. So,
Mm, certainly, certainly. And actually, I think that's an interesting jumping off point to begin. So
yeah.
I'll reiterate and say thank you for being here and thank you for the kind words. That was cool. That was. But here's what I would love to know at first is because I had uh, the advantage of having ESPN Plus, right? Is that I can
Mhm.
tune into any game that's kind of happening in the world, which I love to do. But one night I was scrolling through, I saw that you all at ACU were playing an ESPN Plus game. So I flicked it on and went, oh my gosh, I need to check out my girl Ashley. I gotta see what she's doing because it was just prior to the WAC tournament. And so I was thinking, what's happening here? Let me check in. And then I noticed that something was irregular that had been happening, which was you weren't on the court, which I thought was odd because you're on the court more often than you're not. And so I shot your mom a text actually, And I went, "Hey, by the way, I'm checking into the ESPN Plus game and I don't see Ash out here. What happened?" And she immediately was like, um, "I don't know. I haven't gotten word yet, but you went down with a apparent injury." And it was like, "Oh man, oh my gosh." So now that we're weeks, and how long is it removed, by the way, from then, if you know off?
Um, I'm almost, I think I'm like 2 months.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Once again, time is flying.
yeah, it has.
But what ended up happening to you, and how have you kind of begun to sort through it as you're beginning the recovery process?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, night before conference tournament, last home game against our rival. Um, just got set a ball like far outside the antenna, went to attack, and then came down on my left leg and didn't hear a pop, didn't feel anything. I mean, it hurt for sure, but couldn't put weight on it. So they took me back to the table and they were just kind of like doing some random tests, like maybe it was a cramp, whatever. And then it was actually pretty crazy how it all worked out because there was a surgeon in the audience and he was here for one of the other players, but he came running down and then all the training staff and everything, and they just looked at it and were like, "We're pretty sure you tore your ACL, but we're gonna get an MRI tomorrow." So the next day, 8 a.m., go over to, our medical center, X-ray, MRI, all of it. And at that point, I could kind of walk on it a little bit with a brace. And so head out to Utah to go to the conference tournament in in my brace with my crutches, with our trainer and all of our gear. And then we get the call when we get back from the conference tournament and they said that ACL, MCL, it was all torn. So it was just kind of a crazy road from there because it was almost Christmas break. And, at that point, you have to start the kind of like, where am I going to get my surgery? How's that going to go? What's rehab going to look like? And so the timing could not have worked out any better. Like the Lord just like took care of this whole situation because it happened like a few weeks before Christmas break. So I was able to go home and get surgery in Dallas and do all my recovery with my family. So it all it all worked out way better than I could have thought, although it's just such a challenging, thing to happen as an athlete. It's hard to face that. But like the way that God has moved and that he just like took care of every detail is pretty crazy to look back on. So now, 2 months out, I'm attempting to jog like next week. So just kind of moving at whatever pace my body allows.
Certainly, certainly. And first off, I want to say thank you for sharing that backstory today. I think it's really important to understand the entirety and breadth of the situation and kind of what happened early on.
Mhm.
But there are a few key points that I want to dive deeper into out of what you just said. And the first thought that came to mind is that the ACL MCL type thing, type condition and
Mhm.
trial has really burst onto the scene in athletics in a large way. I feel like the last couple of years, and
For
maybe as
sure.
far
Yeah.
back as like the last five. But and really, we don't even need to talk about the reasons for that. But among
Mhm.
them are a change in strength, a change in athleticism, and ability to move in
Right.
certain ways that are challenging on the body. But I say all of that because knowing what you know about how it has affected people and athletes in particular, and how much more of a conversation is around that sort of injury. When you heard them say that, what were your immediate thoughts, and how did you kind of reconcile that that was happening? It's going to be a long road ahead.
Mhm. It was really hard to hear for sure. But you're so right. Like it has been so prevalent in the last few years. So, I've heard stories. My teammate who was on the team, did the same thing her freshman year. So she has kind of walked us through her journey, her story. And so like when it happened, I kind of knew, and there was a part of me that just had no doubt that that's what it was. But it's still so hard to hear. Like it's almost like the words, the term is just like has such a negative connotation to it already. So you tore something, you are going to be out, you have to get surgery. Like those are just so hard to hear. And I didn't even know how long the process was, honestly, until I got into figuring out what we were going to do for surgery and recovery. So just at that night, it was like, oh man, like this is pretty crazy just because I've seen other people go through it. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a longer road than people realize, like the whole 9 month is kind of their timeline. And so 6 months is ideal, but 9 months is like prime to where you can kind of mentally be where your body is.
Mm, okay, okay, I see, I see. And the other thing that you had mentioned, which really struck me actually, that I just heard you speak about, is you said the Lord takes care. And you
Mm-hmm.
said that conditions aligned so that you could be home and that you could have a little bit of a break away and you had the ability to kind of be flexible and let whatever was destined to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so out of that, I'm so curious if we could gain some insight into where your faith comes from and what makes you you in terms of your ability to internalize these things and
Yeah.
deal with the cards that have been laid out before you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, like my parents are just so they're the backbone, basically. Grew up in a Christian home and have always been able to walk really closely as a family in my faith. And so that has been so huge to have such great role models. And I think part of the reason it was so not easy to cope with, but just easier, I guess, in the time that I was able to kind of come to grips with it is like my dad was there that night and he was able to kind of talk me through it and just gave me different perspectives on how I don't know, how to look at it a little bit differently and how I think I grew up with so much like FCA and everything talking about how your identity is not in your sport, it's what you do, it's not who you are. And so I think that this kind of showed that like I'm still an athlete, I still play the sport, but like when it was taken away, like it's not the end of it, and I'm still me. I still have all of my community and people around me. And so I think that was the one of the biggest and greatest things that the Lord showed me.
Hmm. I love what you said there. I love what you said there because a theme throughout the conversations I've been able to have is just that, which
Mm-hmm.
is that I've dealt with something that had whether it's an injury, whether it's another element to like grief, whatever it is, whether it's trying to work your way onto the field or the court through the program, whatever it is. I've dealt with an event that has showed me and revealed to me that my identity is somewhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which in the long run has tended to help a lot of those who I've had the pleasure of speaking to. And so, in
Yeah.
that, Ash, I would love to know. I think people out there, whoever's listening, would love to know this as well. It's like, okay, given that you are a high profile athlete that has done what you've been able to do in high school, player of the year, in college, being a part of the conference, all conference teams, and, um, building a resume in the sport is where, what are some of the other key elements to who you are? in what you do, and where would you say your identity is rooted?
That's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, it's in my faith. It's in God, because I don't think anything else comes into place without that being the center. And so recently, more than ever, I've really kind of leaned into that and let that guide me. And just coming to a Christian school, having such a great Christian community back home has really been crazy helpful. And no matter what level of athletics you play, no matter what school you go to, there's always people who you can find who are kind of on the same page as you. And so that was super key. And even just like having a coach who prays after practices and games and stuff has been just way cooler than I even thought it would be. Because when I was looking at schools, that was not really top priority. And so I got super lucky, and I'm super thankful to go to a place that really pushes that, and I don't have to kind of hide that, but just have so many people around me who will push me in that direction.
Mm, mm. I love what you said. And actually, I am blown away by the fact that you just mentioned that, um, you know, what faith was looking like, or how it
Mhm.
was shown at a school that you were choosing wasn't the highest priority. So in that, I'm super curious to know. You got me on a track now.
Yeah.
Is the story is and was that, and once again, forgive me if I'm wrong in this, but just beginning to understand at a deeper level from you
Mhm.
is that your recruitment was tough and it was challenging, and it came in waves, and it came late, and there were hurdles to climb to get there. And so I was wondering if you could speak a little bit on how that process was, and what were some of the things that you were looking at, and how it came about that you ended up at Abilene Christian.
Yeah, it was really tough. It was way harder than I thought it was going to be. Early on, I had super high hopes for what it was going to look like, and kind of a mix of the area that we were in, COVID being my sophomore and junior year. I only played, 3 years of club, in an area that's not really super commonly recruited out of, because for volleyball, it's mostly Texas and California, but not to use those as excuses or anything, but it was super challenging to work kind of around that and through that. And so when I was looking at schools, I for sure wanted the South. I Texas was my dream place to be in, just weather wise, people wise, culture, everything. And so, looking at like Baylor, TCU, dream schools, um, and then just kind of random ones throughout. And it wasn't until my senior year, I actually switched clubs my senior year. And so my coach, um, he just helped so much and reached out to a bunch of different schools before one of the travel tournaments. And um, Abilene had just gotten a new coach. And so she was like, yeah, we'll watch her film, we'll go watch her play. And then I met her at that tournament, and then she offered me a few days later. And so I had some other schools I was looking at, but once I met these coaches, I was sold. So
Hmm.
had not even seen the school yet, but the coaches got me here.
Wow. Wow. And what was it about them that had you say, I want to be a part of that? This is, what I'm meant to do.
Yeah, I feel like it was a lot of personality. I still talk with them a little bit. And so just like the dry humor, sarcastic, like they were just so fun, so easy to talk to. They kind of told me a little bit about like how they run things and their schedule and everything. And it was so appealing to me. And then at that point, there was the opportunity to do beach as well. And so I kind of came in assuming I would do both and was so excited about it. And then that did not, or the beach part did not end up happening. But they were just great, great people and so fun to be with. And, they just they were the draw for me.
Mm, no doubt, no doubt. And then, uh, just so I have this clear, I'm trying to decipher as we're going
Yeah.
along here, but you underwent another change, right, at coach? Is that
Yes, I did.
okay?
So
Okay. Yeah.
this last August, or no, sorry, June, right before we got to campus, it was actually 2 weeks before report day. We got word that our head coach got a new job, and they were just kind of scrambling to get, or not necessarily scrambling, but like they were in crunch time to kind of find a new coach. And so they set up a committee real quickly, and they worked so hard to get us the great coach that we have now, who's actually an ACU alumni. She's in the Hall of Fame, and she was playing overseas in Denmark, and she applied for the job, and here she is. And it's just like, it's really been the greatest change. So I've been super lucky to have two amazing coaches, as well as all the staff, all the assistant coaches, trainers, everything.
Mm. So just so I have this straight, and then I want to launch into talking about this a little bit, is
Hmm.
the recruitment in high school is a challenge, and
Yes.
you eventually land the plane at a place that you're so
Hmm.
excited to be at, and then the earth is uprooted from underneath your feet again.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lesson even in there to be taught is the level of commitment that to me from what I see on the outside is that you're locked in to that program.
Hmm.
You know what? And especially too in this area, excuse me. Wow, that was bad. We're on spring break and I'm out here struggling over words.
Yeah.
Is the era, excuse me, of college sports that we're in now, where it's so
Hmm.
easy for you to leave and it's so easy for you to
Yeah.
buy your way out of a program.
Hmm.
What has pushed you to hang around and to stay committed to where you're at and to be present and be where your feet are?
Yeah, the transfer portal is pretty crazy. It's so cool. It's a great opportunity, but um and it was definitely a thought. I think if maybe the change had happened a little bit sooner, I think I could see myself going in the portal after that first year. But I I honestly was like, I'll try it out. I'll see how you like it, because it is you do have the opportunity to kind of make that decision whenever you want, basically. And so um yeah, I was like, I'll try it out. I loved the people here, loved the school, so I didn't really want to leave at all. But with a new coach coming for a coach and then her leaving, it's kind of a hard change. So then the season started, and I was like, I love it. She answered all prayers. She was just perfect right when we needed her. And so um yeah, just kind of no, not even a thought to transfer after the season started.
Wow, that's tremendous. And
Hmm.
I think it's really interesting because a lot of times we hear about coaching changes and program changes as a whole that happen that make people be driven to leave and say, hey,
Hmm.
I have to go. I mean, this isn't right.
Yeah.
So I'm like very happy and like thrilled to hear that it's happening the way that it has. What is
Yes.
it like? What is it like, if you don't mind me asking, to play for somebody who went through the program and knows a little bit more about what it's like to be
Mhm.
excellent at the school that you're currently at?
Yeah, it's way cooler than I thought. She just brings a bunch of traditions and things that like were that they did as players. She is super super relatable. She like knows all the same buildings, a lot of professors. Like, it was run very similarly. And
Mm,
so it's kind of been so fun to just like ask her about what it was like when she was here. And it definitely just makes her way more relatable to all of us, I think. So it's been really fun.
mm. That's cool too. I think that's one that's particularly unique,
Hmm.
just by way of how that happened. A quick change, and then I didn't even know that was something I learned for the first time, is that she was actually overseas. So that was
Yeah.
cool to hear too, that she was
Yeah.
willing to drop everything, and
Yeah.
head back and serve in a time of need where
Hmm.
there's been a transition. That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. We had we had just to kind of add in a little bit here. We had a coaching change in football at Michigan State
Hmm.
back in September, and the interim coach was somebody who the players loved. And I spoke to, off camera, I was telling you about my friend Caleb a little bit.
Yeah.
He's somebody who's dealt with injuries and tried to work his way onto the field and kind of been there at times and then kind
Hmm.
of hasn't at times. But
Yeah.
he's somebody who said to me, when that happened, I was about to dive out.
Hmm.
But then the interim head coach brought a perspective of faith that Michigan State hadn't seen in the last three coaching cycles, which was
Oh,
incredible
wow. Yeah.
because he's somebody, his name's Harlan Barnett. He's somebody who would facilitate prayers after practice and lead the
Oh,
team
yeah.
in Bible studies and things. And
Hmm.
you're just, and he spoke at Athletes in Action at Michigan State. And so he was just a light, right?
Yeah.
That hadn't been seen in a long time. And I think that resonated. And then the university went a different direction. And he took a job elsewhere after 23 years of being at Michigan State, which was
Oh,
unbelievable
wow.
to see that
Yeah, that's
trajectory happen.
crazy. Yeah.
So he left and was no
Oh,
longer kind
man.
of the guy. It just went wow.
Yeah.
But that's amazing to hear though about what you were saying.
Yeah.
You know, how is it? And I know that this is something that maybe you don't have a full answer on yet,
Hmm.
which I get, given that it's just halfway through. Uh, but so far, how would you assess your collegiate career and everything that has transpired and gone down, and where are you at?
Yeah, it's challenging for sure. I think it's so worth it. And I think that, you work your whole life. It sounds dramatic, but you work really hard to get here. And so it's just kind of trying to enjoy the opportunities and the people and just this season of life. And that's what they tell us. They're like, it's really hard, but these are going to be some of the best memories, the best times. So it's it's challenging in the way of, commitment, but you're also learning so much and you're learning so many life skills. So I'm so thankful to be able to be doing this and excited to finish out the last two with some big goals.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's something that I would love to hear about a little bit down the line. Is kind of
Hmm.
where your thoughts are heading forward. But I think you just said something awesome, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because the last couple days I was in New York, and I was at uh, Briggs Moore, who's a guy who
Hmm.
is from our hometown.
Yeah.
My best friend in this world. He's at Army West Point, and he actually shoots rifle over there, which is an NCAA sport and Division One and that whole deal. But his experience is unique, given that it's the military academy, right?
Right.
And they're kind of on a different, not a different, well, trajectory maybe, because they have to
For
serve and
sure.
and
Yeah.
be a part of that. But here's what I would love to know though, is because I was hearing about his experience being an athlete there, what are some of kind of the pros and cons of being a Division One athlete? I know this is kind of a hot topic that a
Hmm.
lot of people like to chat about, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are. Some of the memories you've had, some of the bright spots of the experience, and some of the things that are tougher, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Um, Pros and cons. I think that the pros personally far outweigh the cons. I think that it's such a fun thing to get to do. You meet so many people and you get so many opportunities to, travel. It all comes with your sport, so it's all paid for, and you get great medical attention, not to mention just like help in classes and just kind of the status, I guess, of like being an athlete. Um, and also just like knowing other athletes is always super fun. And on the other side of that, you kind of put your life, your job, what maybe you want to do in the future on hold for a little bit. And so in that way, you could think of it as kind of a pause, kind of getting behind. There's definitely days where I'm like, I could be working, I could be getting a steady income. And and so it's just kind of a trade-off. And it's kind of, what would you rather be doing? And what do you love to do? And this is such a short season. It's 4 years, and five if you're lucky or got the COVID year or whatever. But yeah, I think that it's such a cool opportunity, and I'm still in it, and I have so many memories and so many connections and people. So I can only imagine what 2 more years does.
Yeah, undoubtedly, undoubtedly. You know, I loved to hear much of what you said, but one of the things that I really want to know is about the travel and the different
Hmm.
environments that you get to be a part of. So, speaking from a volleyball sense and having played in different venues and locations, what are some of the top ones that you've been able to enjoy, and why do, one or two of them stand out?
I think, well, TCU, my freshman year, it was preseason. It was our first travel tournament. And so just kind of seeing the court, the stage that you've watched on TV for all growing up is just a crazy surreal experience to get to, be the person on the court. So that was super special. And just like the facilities that they have are amazing to see. But GCU, actually, in our conference, they have one of the best crowds, environments. They work really hard to kind of build that, but their music was crazy loud. Their fans were so loud. It was definitely the best in season, kind of environment that you get to play in, and just helps your game so much more to get to experience that.
Shout out GCU. Shout out the
Yeah,
Havocs over there. That was cool. I
yeah.
appreciate that. I knew they were tremendous in men's, women's basketball, but I
Hmm.
actually didn't know that they kind of brought that as well over to the volleyball floor. So thank you for
Yeah,
sharing. I love
yeah.
hearing that. That's good. That's really good. You know, I think right now is a great time to dive into a little bit of the conversation around the growth of women's sports because
Hmm.
I think that this is something I've been wanting to ask you about and hear kind of
Yeah,
your opinion. Being that you're planted squarely in the one that's receiving huge attention, which is volleyball. That's kind of swept the nation, really.
yeah.
But I want to know what your thoughts are about the growth and the new kind of how do I want to say it? New circumstances that
Right.
women's sports as a whole finds themselves in, the amount of attention.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think I'm biased, but volleyball is, I think, just such a fun sport to watch. It's very smooth, fast paced. It's a very like feminine sport. And it's also just fun to participate in. It's kind of easy to understand what's going on. And so I think it's so amazing. And honestly, shout out to Nebraska for kind of building the platform and using their platform to really get the word out. And now that we have the pro league, it's really encouraging to see, and to be kind of towards the end of it and it just now picking up. I can only imagine where it is in a few years from now. And so yeah, I'm super thankful because it brings way more opportunities to us, to little girls below us. And I it's just one of the greatest sports to watch, I think, or at least female sports. So I think it's so cool how popular it is. And I think it's very well deserved and a little bit overdue.
I'll just go on record. First off, thank you for sharing about that eloquently. I appreciate that, and that was a question that I couldn't go this show without asking.
Yeah.
But I think that you were talking about where it stands in the hierarchy of sports. I think it's at the top for sure. And that's
Yeah.
regardless of who's playing, it's just
Yeah.
unbelievable. You know what I've said, and I know I've made this joke too, but I'll say it on live now is we have to do a Michigan State and Abilene match
Yes, we
somewhere
do.
over the next couple of years. We got to make that
Yes,
happen.
we do.
I'm not sure how, but
I'll tell my coaches.
yeah, 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 for real, for real. Coach Leah, if you're out there, check this out.
Yeah,
Check
yeah.
this out. Coach Johnson, that's funny. But Ash, the retired Michigan State coach, Kathy George,
Hmm.
she's now the coach for the Grand Rapids Rise that are in the PPL.
Okay, yeah.
So she's kind of ushering in that level,
Yeah,
which has been amazing, as you said.
yeah.
I have a friend, his name's Clark, who he's the assistant at Central Michigan, and he worked under Kathy and then under Leah actually, but he was able, because of the connection to Kathy, attend the first game with his team that was happening
That's
in
crazy.
Grand Rapids, Michigan, and
Yeah,
just said the environment was otherworldly, otherworldly.
yeah.
But I think like the addition of this platform and the new era of sport with, as we had mentioned earlier, the portal and the NIL stuff and
Hmm.
the dollars. It's a really interesting time and one
Yeah.
that is kind of hard to really summarize. But I'm gonna give you the floor to do
Okay.
it in the most succinct way and
Yeah.
leave you with the question of what are some of the things that you have heard about NIL slash if you've had any involvement at your school, what does that look
Yeah. It's it's definitely picking up. It's crazy this is all happening all at once, it feels like. But NIL is definitely newer at my school, but for us, there's an app you can be on, and it basically donors pay the app and then it pays the players. So in that way, I know schools have that to varying degrees, but we kind of have that to some small extent of that's just like how you get money directly. And then on top of that is contracts with companies, businesses, people in your area. For me, it's Advocare and Chike. And then just trying to build your brand. It's kind of a crazy concept to like for the ability to make money off of your name. And so I think it's really cool. I think as much as schools and sports are so big, it's you're watching the players. And so I think it's awesome to give them the ability to kind of earn some revenue for how well they're performing.
like? Yes, I love what you just left with, which is that, it's all about building your brand, right? And
Hmm.
finding a way to show more of who you are and what you're
Hmm.
about, which actually I think brings us to an interesting intersection and cross of the
Okay.
road. Because one thing that I've wanted to kind of make clear with this show, and who knows whether I'm doing a half decent job of it or not, but is that there's an intersection between one's faith and the
Hmm.
ability to showcase them as somebody who's in the market, right? And somebody who can profit. So I was wondering if you've, thought about or entertained the idea of mixing the two, of finding a way to blend your faith with the sport that you play, and if you've had any avenue to do it.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it earlier, but it makes it so much easier when you go to a Christian school. You kind of have a little bit of a leg up because it's less intimidating, I would say, because you're surrounded by people with similar values and just kind of understand where you're coming from. So in the way of sports, it's from praying before the games to writing a verse on your shoes or whatever you do, praying after with the team. um I think there are definitely ways to kind of intermix the two. And then recently I found even just like the way that I can apply what I'm reading in the Bible to to my life, to my sport, and just kind of knowing that they're all like intermixed and they all go together. They don't have to be completely separate. It doesn't have to be faith on Sundays, game on Thursday, Saturday. You can kind of combine the two and showcase that. And then along with NIL, one draw for me was finding companies who had faith in their bio and who I knew were kind of backed by common values. And so that was something that I was able to sell myself to them, of sharing the same values, and then something that the companies were a draw for me too.
Mm, yeah, that's tremendous, and thank you for answering that the way that you did. That's kind of um, I won't say what I was hoping for because I never ask questions and like
Yeah.
hope that the guest says something. But I will say that reinforces a lot of what I've heard from people in different corners.
Hmm.
Is that that's a possibility? And so I'm inspired by the fact that indeed that's true in your experience
Yeah.
as well. Are there and I would love to know this because as you see here, I'm adorned with Spartansville and
Yes.
Michigan
Yes.
State, and I'm here in East Lansing, Michigan,
Yeah.
trying to take care of business and find a way to bring the platform of faith
Hmm.
into the mainstream here. Um, Let me ask you, is there anything that happens or any part of being at a Christian school that people wouldn't necessarily know about if you're in a position like I am, it's at secular Michigan State or
Hmm.
haven't gotten to college? What has that been like? Is there any nuance to that? Is there anything special?
Yeah, there is, and kind of for everybody who goes to the school, there's chapel, you have to take Bible classes. So there are kind of little things like that. And then, like I mentioned with sports, every team prays after games. We pray after lift, pray after practice. And then you also have team chapels. So for us, every team does it differently, but sometimes like a player will lead the chapel, or just a speaker comes in and talks to your team. And so there's little things like that that I would say are probably pretty different from, somebody from a secular school.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And that would be so unique to experience. I
Yeah.
think I had a conversation on this show with Duke Brennan, who is now
Oh yeah.
hooping at Grand Canyon,
Hmm.
uh, which we went shout out Havocs earlier, so I'll just say that again, shout out
Yeah.
to Havocs. But when I spoke to him, he was freshly on campus and
Hmm.
hadn't been in classes yet, hadn't
Yeah.
kind of experienced what that looked like. And so I love hearing about some of the things that do happen. And that just
Hmm.
feels like a really, really good, strong, conducive environment to growing
Yeah.
in faith. What are some of the key ways? And I know we spoke about the injury, and I know that that's something that's an
Hmm.
isolated incident that can lead to growth and being a catalyst to your faith. But what are some of the other ways during college that you've seen your faith grow, and what are some of the ways that you get to practice it since you've been in school?
Yeah, I would say surrounding yourself with people who are very like-minded has been kind of the biggest thing for me, because I could totally see Sunday morning rolls around, tired from the week that you had, gonna watch church in bed. I could totally see that. That would just be so hard to pass up. But when you have people around you who are like, yeah, let's get up, let's go to church, and
Mm,
you kind of have a group that's like excited to go with you. FCA, like there are just a lot of opportunities that you can press into if you want, but you don't have to. And so I think the biggest advice I would have loved to know before is like find people like that and like go to those things. No matter how tired you are, go to church on Sunday, go to FCA. Like I've been so thankful to have people who kind of push me to do that, even when I don't want to.
mm, mm. I think the recurring theme that I've heard across your tenure and
Hmm.
career and whatever we want to say, however we want to break that down,
Yeah.
is commitment and
Hmm.
just being willing to go to that next level. But I
Hmm.
say that because have you been able to connect with a church and what does that look like? And if you want to do a shout out here on your end,
Yeah.
uh, where do you go? You get the chance.
Yeah, so I go to Beltway Park. It's my favorite here. It is the closest thing to my home church I've had, so it's so fun to go to and very comforting and a place that my family loves to go to when they come visit. And I think the cool thing about a place like this is there are a bunch of different churches. So like my roommate goes to this church called The Well, so we'll go there sometimes. And you just can kind of bounce around and get a really good word wherever you go. But my favorite and go to is Beltway. And recently I've started serving in the children's ministry, which is I haven't started that
Wow.
yet. I start that next Sunday, but
Okay. Good,
yeah,
good.
I'm excited to start doing that.
No doubt. No doubt. Um, you know, oh shoot. This always happens. I lose the train of thought.
Oh, I do
But
all the time.
that's crazy. Uh, oh man. I've appreciated the conversation. I really have. And
Hmm.
it's easy to be immersed in that. I'm trying to get back to where my thought was going, but
Yeah.
I do have a backup plan,
Okay,
which
perfect.
is that you just mentioned that you're beginning to serve starting
Hmm.
very soon. And so I was wanting to know, where does that come from? Where does that desire? Oh, okay. We'll go here and then we'll go to my thought.
Perfect.
Just
Okay.
remember. Here we go. But where does that desire come? To serve, to be a part of the community, and I just love hearing that. So I would love to know more about how you got to that.
Yeah. Well, my parents always served in church, and so they kind of always were like, "You guys should do it. It's so rewarding. It's so special." Um, and so I got here, last year, and I was just gonna kind of feel it out, see if I had a home church. And then this year, I feel, I have we have free weekends now that we're in off season, so it was kind of the perfect time to try to start that, but I didn't exactly know how until we went to church because my friend was getting baptized actually.
Mm.
And they gave us serve cards when we walked in, and they were like, if you want to serve in the kids ministry, fill out these cards, leave it at the front desk. So it was all God. Like he put it on my heart, and then he just put the platform in my lap that I could so easily fill that out. And so it was just too good to pass up.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And that that's amazing to see. That's
Yeah.
actually a story that I haven't heard yet during my time doing this show. Uh, is somebody finding a way to give back within
Mhm.
their church outside of like a on campus, ministry
Right.
type. So I
Hmm.
find that really cool.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things that you pray about often? And then on the back of that, are there any stories or verses from the Word that stick close to you that are integral to what you're all about?
Yeah. Prayer wise, I prayed a lot that just kind of I would not find my identity in this, and just always trying to be very aware of the fact that like everything I have he's given me, and he can kind of take it at any time. And where will I be at that point? And so I definitely, you pray for no injuries, you pray for your performance and all that. And so I've definitely gotten so much closer during this time because I just have felt this crazy peace over this whole situation. It's so hard to be upset when, and this kind of circles back to your verse. There's a verse, I think it's James, oh gosh, 1:5 or something like that. But in it says he cares about every detail. And one of our friends sent it to my parents the night that I got hurt. And so that just has really really just covered, this whole situation. And then,
Mm,
um, peace I give you, not as the world gives you. And so that's just a constant prayer, like, God, give me peace over this situation, over um this hard practice, this anxiety that I feel about this test, because the world cannot give you the same comfort and the same confidence that he can give you. And so those are kind of my go-tos, just of trying to stay in a good headspace.
mm. You're awesome. You're awesome. I love that. That is my favorite story that you've told, is that somebody mentioned that to your family. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how that's become ingrained in how you're attacking, getting through this thing, this
Mm-hmm.
adversary. I love that. I really do. Um, I don't want to keep you for too long at all, but I appreciate the time we've had, and
Yeah.
a couple more places to go, just one or two maybe,
Yeah,
if you're
of
cool.
course.
Uh, you know, I think, like, we've spoken quite a bit about
Mm-hmm.
what has happened over the course of your time, and how your kind of process is for getting to where you've gotten to, and your approach. I was wanting to know, you know, we touched on the concept of goals earlier. So
Mm-hmm.
with the last couple years that you have, what are some of the goals that you want to see accomplished? And that can be, athletically, personally. I want to hear it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then as well, I would love to hear about postgraduate, if you're thinking about it already,
Yes.
where you're kind of looking to head to.
Yeah, well, goals wise, I'll start there because post grad is a different conversation. But
Yeah, yeah.
my dad always, growing up, he just kind of always talked about leaving a legacy. So that's something that I have on my notebook and my locker. And that's my ultimate goal here, is just kind of how will I be remembered? What legacy am I leaving? And so that's kind of a constant goal that I have. And, you know, kind of how I can do that is breaking records. That's my ultimate goal. I want to be a record holder. I want to be an All-American. So athletically, I have a lot of goals. Academic wise, I want to do well. I want to get my degree. I'm a business management major, so I want to get my bachelor's in that. And then after college, that's so tricky. I would love to do something in sports. That's kind of where my heart is, sports marketing. And just kind of being in Texas and Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys, the Rangers. Um, those are kind of my dream corporations to work with. And so I don't know how to get there or what that will look like, but that's kind of what I'm shooting for.
Mm, that's such a good word. I love that. I love that. And I think, what I do know about you is that you'll find a way. And not only that, but if that's, something that you're doing for his purpose and his
Hmm.
intentions, I think he'll be able to assist you in that
Yeah.
journey as well, in those pursuits. So that's,
Yeah. Thank
my
you.
immediate takeaway from you saying that piece to it. But
Hmm.
there's this quote out there that is history intrigues me, but his story compels me. And I was wondering, hearing that and speaking about the conversation of records,
Hmm.
knowing you, I know that there's a deeper meaning there than just being the name in the book, right?
Hmm.
So I was wondering, is what does that sort of accomplishment mean to you, and why is that the aim?
That is a really good question. Um, I think it's a very attainable, it's a very measurable goal. And this whole journey, this whole process is hills and valleys. And Sometimes you're at the top of the mountain, sometimes, you're at the bottom. So it for sure is more than your name in a book. But it's just reaching that number. It's just going that one extra step to get that one extra kill to just kind of hold that title and take a breath at the top or whatever. But it definitely is more than just a name, more than just a title, but it's just something to shoot for, something that's very attainable, but you still have to work really hard for.
Mm. Would that right there feels like a great place to kind of end the portion of the show that's this long-winded conversation.
Yeah.
One thing that I have done before that I haven't done a good job of doing routinely, but I would love to try with you,
Yeah.
is a segment called Skipping Stones that I kind of created and thought about that is more of a rapid fire type, where it's, I ask
Okay.
a question and I try and serve it up to where it's a really quick answer. And we get
Yeah.
through, maybe like four of them, five, something like that.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Yeah. Let's try it.
Sounds good. So, folks, just for our branding, this is Skipping Stones on Confluence World Podcast, ready to roll with Ashli
Yes.
Edmiston. First question, Ash, is what are some of your favorite ways to get away from the game?
To get away from what?
Some of your to get away from the game, to like free
Oh,
time, relax. How do you get away?
boating for sure. Love to go on the boat, hanging out with friends. We love to go get coffee, tanning. In Texas, it is sunny more than it's not, so we love tanning.
By the way, for any Midwest audience we may have here on this show, what temperature was it today or recently?
It was 93 degrees today in February.
And guess what, folks? It's literally February 26th. I don't even understand how that works.
It's
But
crazy.
here's another question for you. Favorite game day meal?
Oh, a sandwich, a McAllister sandwich.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Is there any one in particular?
I get the McAllister's Club.
Mm. Mhm. I can hear the fingers on the keyboard clicking to go to the menu to try and figure out what that
Yeah.
is.
Yes.
That's crazy. They're pecking away.
Yeah,
Oh, they gotta know. Folks, look that up. I want to hear report back. What is
it's so good. It's so
it?
good.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. If you if you had to describe your play style and your leadership style on your team, how would you do it?
Um, oh gosh, in a word,
Yes,
um, I would say leadership style. I would say for me specifically or our whole team.
for you.
Okay, for me. I would say I take a more comedic approach to it. I'm more there for comic relief, kind of get people out of their heads a little bit and just kind
Sure,
of
sure,
throw something funny under there.
sure.
And so yeah, I would say that's how I take my play too. Just try to laugh it off, laugh your mistakes off, have fun. It's just the best way to do it.
Hmm. What is the most embarrassing moment that you've had as a Division One athlete at ACU?
Oh, oh my gosh. So this year we got Under Armour basketball shoes. And so
Okay,
basketball shoes for volleyball players are super big. Um, it definitely softens your landing, but they're big, bulky shoes. And so kind of throughout this whole season, we had this running joke because everybody would trip in them. And so like one person every once in a while would be tripping in games. And so there was one time that I tripped in a game. And it's just you just have to laugh it off because it's horrible, but it's definitely funny and embarrassing.
hmm. And then the last one. Thank you, by the way, for participating in
Yeah.
skipping in stones. This is kind of a nerdy part of the show, but I just had to know. Uh, the last one that I want to do is if you, because I know you talked about uh, your ability to serve and a role
Mhm.
that you're moving into. What is what is a lesson that you've learned that you would think is tremendous to know as a young person trying to get to where you're trying to get to, whatever endeavor that is?
Hmm. I would say I would say commit to it, work at it with all your heart, but also enjoy every step because there are so many days of training and practicing, but looking back, those are just such fun memories with fun people. But it's, with the commitment side of it, it is a major commitment. And if you want to get to a high level, you have to be all in. And so I would just say those two things, kind of a balance of how can you be 100% committed to the grind, but also and really enjoy doing it and finding things that will help not let you get burnt out.
Mm, oh my gosh. Did you hear what she said? Y'all out there, take note of that. You know, that's going to be it for us, actually, on Confluence of Worlds podcast with Bryan Rector. And today, for episode 17, Ashli Edmiston, all the way from Texas. But, Ash, before we get out of here, is there anyone that you want to shout out or acknowledge for
Oh
the
gosh.
time of your career? And then, is there any way that people can connect with you to watch your journey continue to unfold?
Yeah, I mean, shout out my family for sure. The Weeperts, Jenny,
Mm,
Bryan, the Basiniuses for letting me use their barn to hit in all of these years. And then, my club coaches, my high school coaches, you for following my journey this whole way. College coaches, trainers. There's so many people that go into and just like put their heart and soul into you just to help you succeed. And
mm.
so there's an endless list of people who have impacted me and are I'm here because of them. So um and then of course the man above for getting me here in the first place. And yeah, I have an Instagram, Ashli Edmiston. It'll be tagged wherever. That's pretty much the main form. ESPN Plus, follow ACU volleyball. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful. Hey, thank you, seriously, for coming on and being a part of this and teaching me about where your journey has come from and a little bit
Yeah.
about where it's going.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we were able to do this.
yeah, for sure. This is one that I can say confidently I was looking forward to and wanted to have it be the right time, right?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
here's the thing: there's never a bad time to have a spiritual conversation. That's what I'll
Mhm.
say immediately.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll let you go, and just we'll say keep grinding, keep going, and I know we'll stay in touch. I know we will.
Yes, for sure.
But
And you
uh,
keep up the great work.
hey, thank you, and with that, have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Confluence World podcast. But stay tuned though, because there are a few things coming down the track. And we've been doing, as you may have seen, maybe you haven't, maybe you're just getting here. We've done some things with the social media, and it's on a little bit of a different level than it ever was. So I'm pumped about that. And we'll let y'all go for the night. But thank you for being here, and have a great day.